before this life.
His name is Jakob, 5 years old. Blonde hair, blue eyes, a quietness that seems to hold something ancient. He lives with his parents in a comfortable apartment in Munich, Germany. His mother, Anna, first noticed something unusual when Jakob was barely 3. The child was watching her arrange flowers in a glass vase, a simple, modern piece from a department store. Jakob reached toward it with surprising intensity. "That's not right," he said, his small voice filled with unexpected authority. "The glass is wrong, too thin, no pontil mark, machine-made, not mouth-blown. Real glass should have soul. This is empty." Anna stared at her 3-year-old son. "What do you mean, sweetheart?" Jakob touched the vase carefully. "When I made glass, you could see the breath in it, the fire shaped by air. Each piece was alive because human hands guided it. This," he pulled his hand back, "this has no heart. Es come. This has no heart. It come." The statement was bizarre, poetic, impossible for a 3-year-old. But Jakob continued over the following months. He drew intricate designs, elaborate vases, delicate bowls, ornate goblets. He labeled them with technical terms: gather, punty, glory hole, marvering, words Anna had never heard. "I worked at the glassworks in Kamenicki-Shenov," Jakob explained one afternoon, his pronunciation of the Czech town name flawless. "In Bohemia, where the greatest glass in the world was made. My master taught me from the time I was 12. By 20, I could blow pieces that made grown men weep, glass that captured light like frozen water, glass that sang when you touched it." He looked at his small hands with something like grief. "But these hands are too small now. I can't hold the pipe. I can't work the glass. I remember how, but I can't do it anymore. Dot Cruz. My now, with your always. With your always are one of the place. With your always are one of the place. With your always are one of the place." Anna's husband, Matthias, an engineer with no artistic background, began researching. Kamenicki-Shenov was real, a historic center of Bohemian glass production in what was now the Czech Republic. The technical terms Jakob used were authentic glass-blowing vocabulary. But their son had never been exposed to glass art. They owned no books about it. They'd never visited a glass museum or workshop. The statements accumulated. Jakob spoke about the glass-blowing process with professional expertise. He described heating glass to precise temperatures, 1,100 degrees Celsius for working. He explained how to gather molten glass on a blowpipe, how to shape it through controlled breathing and rotation, how to use wooden tools that wouldn't stick to the hot glass, how to anneal finished pieces slowly to prevent cracking. "You have to listen to the glass," he would say. "It tells you when it's ready. If you push too hard, it shatters. If you don't push enough, it collapses. You have to work with it, not against it, like a dance, like breathing." Most disturbing were the Czech phrases. Jakob would suddenly speak words his German parents didn't recognize. When Matthias researched them, they were Czech, specifically the dialect spoken in the Bohemian glass region. Fukat sklo, to blow glass. Kristall, crystal. Peknik, the furnace worker. Jakob had never been taught Czech. The family had no Czech connections. But somehow, he spoke fragments of a language from a region famous for glass art. The nightmares began around his 4th birthday. Jakob would wake, screaming about fire, about an explosion, about heat and pain and glass everywhere. "The furnace," he would sob in Anna's arms. "Something went wrong. Too much gas. Too much pressure. I was gathering glass when it happened. The explosion threw me against the wall. There was glass, hot glass, everywhere. On my skin, burning, and then everything went dark." He would touch his chest and arms, as if feeling for injuries that weren't there. "It hurt so much. The glass burned through my clothes, through my skin. I tried to breathe, but the air was full of smoke and heat. And then I wasn't there anymore. I was gone." Anna held her son, listening to him describe a death he'd never experienced. An industrial accident from a century ago. A glass furnace explosion in Bohemia. Matthias made a decision. He contacted Dr. Helena Novak, a psychologist at Ludwig Maximilian University, who had published research on bilingual phenomena in children and unusual memory cases. Dr. Novak was skeptical initially, but when she met Jakob and heard him speak mixing German with Czech glass terminology, describing 1,920 seconds Bohemian glass production with professional authority, drawing designs that matched historical Bohemian glass styles, her skepticism began to waver. "Jakob," she asked carefully, "do you remember your name? When you worked with glass?" Jakob nodded. "Tomáš Novotný. I was 23 when I died. I wasn't married yet, though I wanted to be. There was a girl, Carolina, who worked in the cutting shop. I was going to ask her father for permission to court her, but I never got the chance. The explosion came first." Dr. Novak documented the names Tomáš Novotný, Kameniký Šenov, approximately 1,924. Based on Jakob's statements about his age and the era, she began researching Czech archives, industrial accident records, historical documents about Bohemian glass production. What she found would transform her understanding of memory, consciousness, and the persistence of artistic skill across impossible boundaries. Dr. Novak's research led her to the archives of the Bohemian Glass Museum in Kameniký Šenov. The town's entire economy had been built on glass production for centuries. Master craftsmen passed their skills through generations. The finest crystal in Europe came from these workshops. In the industrial accident records from the 1,920 seconds, she found it. The 15th of March, 1924. Gas furnace explosion at the Josef Riedel Glassworks. 3 workers killed, among them Tomáš Novotný, age 23, journeyman glassblower. The official report described a pressure buildup in one of the large gathering furnaces. The explosion scattered molten glass throughout the workshop. Novotný had been closest to the furnace, gathering glass for a piece he was working on. He died from severe burns and smoke inhalation. The date, the name, the age, the circumstances. Every detail matched what Jakob had described. Dr. Novak found more. The museum had records of glassblowers who had worked in the region. Tomáš Novotny's name appeared in workshop registries. He'd apprenticed starting at age 12, as Jakob had said. He'd worked at the Riedel Glassworks. He'd been considered exceptionally talented. Pieces attributed to him showed remarkable skill for someone so young. The museum had even preserved a few examples of his work. Elaborate vases with delicate threading, bowls with complex engraved patterns, goblets with twisted stems that seemed impossible to create. Dr. Novak arranged to have photographs sent to her. When she showed them to Jakob, the child's reaction was immediate and profound. "I made these," he whispered, touching the images with reverent fingers. "This vase, I remember blowing it. The gather was perfect that day. The glass moved like honey. I added the threads while it was still soft, wrapping them around the body. It took 3 hours to complete. 3 hours of constant reheating, shaping, refining." He pointed to a goblet. "And this was one of my proudest pieces. The twisted stem, you have to keep it rotating at exactly the right speed while you pull and twist simultaneously. If you stop, it sets wrong, and you have to start over. I practiced for months to get it right." Dr. Novak watched a 5-year-old child describe advanced glass-blowing techniques with the expertise of a master craftsman, techniques that matched what the museum curators confirmed about Tomáš Novotny's documented style. She arranged a visit to a modern glass workshop in Bavaria. With the family's permission, she would observe Jakob's reactions to actual glass-blowing equipment and processes. At the workshop, Jakob's behavior was extraordinary. He walked through the space with recognition, naming tools before anyone told him what they were. Blowpipes, jacks, shears, paddles, pontil rods. When the master glassblower began working, Jakob watched with intense concentration. Then, without prompting, he began narrating the process in German, mixed with Czech technical terms. "He's gathering now, picking up molten glass from the furnace. See how he rotates the pipe constantly? That's to keep the gather centered by gravity. If you stop rotating, it drops off. Now he's marveling rolling it on that steel table to shape and cool the surface. The gather needs to be smooth before you start blowing. The master glassblower stopped, staring at this 5-year-old child describing his craft with professional accuracy. Now he'll blow, Jakob continued. Short, controlled breaths. You're not trying to inflate a balloon. You're creating internal pressure that works with the centrifugal force from rotation. The glass expands where it's thinnest and hottest. You control the shape by controlling heat and rotation. Every statement was correct. Every observation was accurate. The master glassblower asked, "How do you know this? Who taught you?" Jakob looked at him with ancient eyes. "My master taught me, Mr. František, in Kameniki Shenov, a long time ago, before I was Jakob, when I was Tomáš." Dr. Novak documented everything. She interviewed the master glassblower afterward, asking him to assess Jakob's knowledge. His response was unequivocal. That child speaks like someone who has worked glass, not like someone who watched videos or read books, like someone whose hands know the craft, the vocabulary, the understanding of temperature and timing, the respect for the material. That comes from experience, not study. Back in her office, Dr. Novak compiled evidence. Jakob had demonstrated knowledge of specific glassblowing techniques used in 1,920 seconds, Bohemia, Czech technical terminology, historical workshop practices, the layout and equipment of period glass factories, the artistic style of Bohemian glass from that era, the biography of Tomáš Novotný, including his age, location, and manner of death. No 5-year-old should know these things. But Jakob did. She contacted the Bohemian Glass Museum, explaining the extraordinary case. The curator, Dr. Pavel Czerny, was intrigued. He sent additional materials photographs of the Riedel glassworks before it was destroyed in World War II, historical images of glassblowers at work, records of workshop layouts and equipment. When Dr. Novak showed these to Jakob, he recognized everything. "That's where I worked," he said, pointing to a photograph of a large workshop interior. "That's my station. Third furnace from the left. My tools were kept in that cabinet. The finishing bench was there, by the windows, for natural light when we did detailed work." Dr. Czerny verified Jakob's statements against architectural records. Every detail was accurate. The child was describing the interior of a building that had been destroyed 80 years ago, from photographs he'd never seen, matching floor plans preserved in archives. Dr. Novak arranged an extraordinary research trip. With the family's permission and funding from the university, they would travel to Kameniki Shenov. Jakob would visit the town where Tomáš Novotný had lived and died. They would see if his memories matched physical reality. The journey from Munich to the Czech border took several hours. As they drove into the Bohemian region, Jakob became increasingly animated. He pointed out landscape features, commenting on how some things had changed while others remained the same. "The mountains are the same," he said quietly. "The shape of the land. But there are more roads now, more buildings. When I lived here, there were more forests, more wild places." Entering Kameniki Shenov, Jakob pressed his face to the window. The town was small, built around glass production for centuries. Many buildings dated from the 19th and early 20th centuries. Some looked exactly as they would have in the 1,920 seconds. Jakob directed them without being told where to go. "Turn here. Now left. The glassworks was down this street." They followed his directions. The original Riedel Glassworks building no longer stood destroyed during World War II, as Dr. Czerny had explained. But the site remained, now occupied by a modern glass museum and workshop. Jakob got out of the car and stood very still, staring at the space. "It's different," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "But I remember. The old building was red brick. 3 stories. The furnaces were on the ground floor. The cutting and finishing shops were upstairs. The office was there, on the corner. The loading dock was there." Dr. Novak checked historical photographs. Jakob's descriptions matched exactly. They entered the museum. The exhibits displayed examples of Bohemian glass through the centuries. Jakob walked through slowly, stopping at the section dedicated to the 1,920 seconds. There, in a glass case, were 3 pieces attributed to Tomáš Novotný: a vase, a bowl, a goblet. Jakob stood transfixed, tears streaming down his face. "I made these," he whispered. "These are mine." They survived. After everything, the explosion, the war, the years these survived. He reached toward the case, not touching, just hovering his small hands near the glass. "This vase, I made it for the spring exhibition in 1923. I wanted to prove I could do work as fine as the master craftsman. I worked on it for days, every detail perfect. The color that ruby red, you get it by adding gold chloride to the glass batch. So expensive. But the color is incomparable." He moved to the bowl. "And this. This was commissioned by a merchant from Prague. He wanted something for his wife's birthday. I put all my skill into it. The engraving, I didn't do that part. That was Karolina's work. She did the cutting and engraving. We worked on it together." His voice broke. "We worked on it together. I wanted to marry her. I was going to ask her. But I never got the chance." Anna held her son as he wept not for his current life, but for a life lost a century ago, for work left unfinished, for a woman he'd loved and never married, for an art he'd mastered and then lost. The museum curator, Dr. Czerny, had come to meet them. He'd been skeptical of Dr. Novak's claims, but watching Jakob, watching him identify his own work, describe the techniques used, name people involved, his skepticism dissolved. "There are details in the museum records," Dr. Czerny said quietly. "Details not in the public exhibits. May I test something?" He brought out a box of photographs, images of glassworks, workers from the 1,920 seconds, factory portraits, group photographs, individual images. "Can you find yourself?" he asked Jakob. Jakob looked through the photographs carefully, then stopped at one. A young man, early 20s, standing with a group of workers, dark hair, strong features, holding a blowpipe. "That's me," Jakob said. "Tomáš. That was taken in 1922, I think, after we completed a big commission for a hotel in Vienna. The master gathered everyone for a photograph. I was so proud that day. I was being recognized as a skilled journeyman. I thought I had years ahead of me, decades of work, of creating beauty." He touched the photograph gently. "I look happy. I was happy. I loved the work. I loved the town. I loved Karolina. I thought I had everything ahead of me, but I only had 2 more years." Dr. Czerny was shaken. The photograph was from the museum's archival collection. It had never been published. It wasn't available online. Yet Jakob had identified Tomáš Novotný from among 20 men in the photograph, with no clues or leading questions. They visited the town cemetery. Many glass workers were buried there, their headstones sometimes decorated with glass ornaments. Jakob led them to a specific section without directions. "There," he said, pointing to a simple stone marker. "That's me." The inscription read, "Tomáš Novotný, 1,900 to 1,924. Sklenecký Mr. Zemřel, príliš mladý, glassblowing master, died too young." Jakob knelt by the stone. 23, he said quietly. "I was 23. So young. So much I wanted to do. So much glass I wanted to create. And it ended so suddenly. The explosion, the fire, the pain, and then nothing. Until I came back. Until I was Jakob. But Jakob's hands are too small. Jakob can't blow glass yet. Maybe someday. But not now." The visit to Karolina's grave was more difficult. Dr. Czerny had found her in records, Karolina Svobodová. She'd worked at the glassworks doing engraving and cutting. She'd married someone else in 1927. Had children. Lived until 1982. She didn't wait, Jakob said, reading her stone. I don't blame her. She had to live. She had to move forward. But still, we could have been happy together. We could have created beautiful things together. Glass and love and life. But the furnace took that future away. The group stood in silence, witnesses to a 5-year-old child mourning a century-old loss. A love never realized. A life cut short by industrial tragedy. An art that died with the artist until memory found its way back across impossible years. Back in Munich, Dr. Novak continued documenting Jakob's case. She compiled a comprehensive report of verified details. Accurate knowledge of Tomáš Novotny's biography. Correct description of the 1924 factory explosion. Technical expertise in glassblowing matching period practices. Recognition of Novotny's surviving artwork. Czech language fragments, specifically Bohemian dialect. Identification of Novotny from unpublished photographs. Navigation of Kamenecký Šenov based on 1920 seconds geography. Emotional responses consistent with genuine memory. The evidence was overwhelming, but Dr. Novak wanted to test something else, the artistic skill itself. She arranged for Jakob to visit a glass artist's studio. Not a factory, but a small artistic workshop where a master craftsman created individual pieces. The artist, Klaus Werner, specialized in traditional Bohemian techniques, the same methods Tomáš Novotný would have used. Werner agreed to let Jakob observe and, if appropriate, interact with the materials under close supervision. In the studio, Jakob watched Werner work, then asked, "May I try? Just once? I know these hands are small, but I need to know if they remember." Werner was hesitant. Glassblowing was dangerous, extreme heat, molten material, sharp tools. But with every safety precaution in place, he agreed to let Jakob attempt the simplest task, holding the pipe and feeling the weight of gathered glass. Werner gathered a small amount of molten glass on the pipe. He handed the pipe to Jakob, supporting it with him, guiding his small hands to the correct position. Jakob held it, began rotating it automatically. His hands knew the movement constant, smooth, maintaining the gather's position through gravity. "Feel the weight," Werner said. "Feel how the glass moves as you rotate." Jakob's face transformed. Joy and grief mixed together. "I remember," he whispered. "My hands remember. The weight, the balance, the way it wants to flow. I remember." Werner took the pipe back, but Jakob's hands continued the rotation motion in the air, muscle memory operating across a century and a death. "He has the instinct," Werner told Dr. Novak afterward. "The way he held the pipe, the automatic rotation, the awareness of the glass's weight and movement. That's not learned from watching. That's learned from doing, from years of doing." But he's 5 years old. He couldn't have years of experience. Yet somehow, he does. Dr. Novak documented everything. She presented her findings to a conference on consciousness studies, carefully noting every verified detail, every impossible correlation. The response was divided. Some researchers saw compelling evidence for memory that transcends individual lifetimes. Others insisted on conventional explanations: cryptomnesia, unconscious exposure to information, coincidence. But no one could adequately explain how a 5-year-old demonstrated professional glassblowing knowledge, spoke Czech technical terms, recognized artwork from 1920 seconds Bohemia, identified a man from an unpublished photograph, and showed muscle memory for a craft he'd never practiced in his current lifetime. Dr. Czerny from the Bohemian Glass Museum began collaborating with Dr. Novak. They documented something remarkable. Jakob could identify Bohemian glass by period, region, and sometimes even specific workshops just by looking at photographs. He explained how different workshops had different styles, how the color and clarity changed based on the sand and other materials used in the glass batch, how you could tell machine-made from mouth-blown glass by subtle imperfections that were actually marks of artistry. "Machine glass is perfect," Jakob explained. "But it's dead. Hand-blown glass has variation. Tiny bubbles, slight thickness changes, tool marks. Those aren't flaws. Those are proof that human hands shaped it, that human breath gave it form. That's what makes glass art, rather than just glass. This understanding, this philosophical perspective on craft couldn't be taught from books. It came from lived experience, from years of practice, from a craftsman's soul. Anna and Matthias watched their son carry this burden of memory, the joy of remembering an art he loved, the grief of losing it, the frustration of having knowledge his small hands couldn't yet execute. Someday, Jakob would say, when I'm bigger, I'll learn glassblowing again. These hands will remember better when they're strong enough to hold the pipe. And I'll create beautiful things again. Not to replace what Tomáš made, but to continue it, to keep the art alive. Dr. Novak's final report included a statement that challenged conventional science. We must consider that consciousness may carry not just memories, but skills. Not just information, but artistic sensibility. Not just data about a craft, but the soul of the craftsman himself. Jakob knows glassblowing, not because he studied it, but because he lived it. And perhaps death cannot take away what the hands truly know, what the soul truly understands. Today, Jakob is 7 years old. His memories of being Tomáš Novotný are beginning to fade, as they often do in these cases. The technical details blur, the emotional intensity softens. But the artistic sensibility remains. The love of glass, the understanding of beauty, the respect for craft. His room is filled with glass objects, not expensive art pieces, but simple examples that he's collected. Each one chosen with care. Each one representing something about the material, the technique, the artistry he remembers. I don't remember all the techniques anymore, Jakob admits. Sometimes I forget the Czech words. Sometimes I can't picture exactly how to do a specific shaping method. But I remember the feeling. The love of creating something beautiful. The satisfaction of taking formless molten glass and breathing life into it. That's still real. Anna has enrolled Jakob in art classes. He gravitates towards sculpture, working with clay, with wire, with materials that can be shaped by hand. His teachers comment on his unusual artistic maturity, his understanding of form and light, his patience with materials. He has an old soul, they say, a craftsman's soul. Klaus Werner, the glass artist, has offered to teach Jakob when he's old enough, perhaps at 12 or 13. The same age Tomáš began his apprenticeship. He has the gift, Werner says. Maybe it's memory from another life. Maybe it's something else. But he understands glass in a way I've rarely seen. When he's ready, I'll help him develop that gift. The case has profound implications for our understanding of consciousness and skill. If Jakob truly carries Tomáš Novotný's artistic knowledge, it suggests that expertise developed over years of practice might transcend the physical brain. Science offers no complete explanation. Motor memory shouldn't transfer this way. Professional skills accumulated over a lifetime shouldn't appear in a child. Artistic sensibility developed through years of practice shouldn't manifest across death and rebirth. And yet, Jakob recognizes techniques he's never studied. He speaks technical terms he's never been taught. He identifies artwork from an era before his birth. He demonstrates muscle memory for a craft he's never practiced. He carries an artist's soul in a child's body. Perhaps consciousness is more than neurons and synapses. Perhaps what we truly are, our passions, our skills, our artistic gifts, transcends the physical form. Perhaps death cannot destroy what the hands truly know, what the heart truly loves. Tomáš Novotný died in fire and smoke, his art cut short at 23. But perhaps his craftsman's soul, his love of glass, his understanding of beauty, his mastery of technique found its way back. Perhaps it returned as Jakob, carrying forward not just memories, but purpose, not just information, but artistry, not just knowledge of glassblowing, but the soul of the glassblower himself. In Kamenný Shenov, Tomáš Novotný's work still stands in museum cases. The vases he blew, the bowls he shaped, the goblets he created, glass that captured light and held beauty, created by hands that turned fire into art. Those hands are gone. That body died a century ago. But perhaps the artist's soul survived. Perhaps it found new hands, small hands now, but growing. Hands that will someday return to the furnace. Hands that remember. The ancient glassblowers understood something profound. When you breathe into molten glass, you're not just inflating it, you're giving it form. You're sharing your breath, your life with the material. In a sense, you're putting your soul into the glass. Perhaps that's literally true. Perhaps the breath, the soul, the essential self of the craftsman, doesn't die when the body dies. Perhaps it continues, seeking new form, new hands, new opportunities to create. Jakob's story suggests something extraordinary about the nature of art and consciousness. Perhaps true artistry never dies. Perhaps the craftsman's soul endures, carrying forward its love of beauty, its mastery of technique, its need to create. Tomáš Novotný shaped fire into beauty. Jakob remembers, and someday, when his hands are strong enough, he'll return to the furnace. He'll gather molten glass. He'll breathe life into it. And the art will continue carried forward by a soul that death couldn't destroy, by hands that never forgot, by an artist who found his way back. If this story touched you, if it made you question what you thought you knew about consciousness, artistry, and the skills that transcend individual lifetimes, you're not alone. Every week, we explore another mystery, another child, another impossible memory that challenges everything we understand about life, death, and the nature of the soul. Subscribe to Before This Life. Join thousands of truth seekers in this journey, because some questions are worth asking, some mysteries deserve our wonder, and some stories need to be heard. What's your theory about Jakob's knowledge? Have you experienced unexplained artistic abilities or passions that seem to come from beyond your current life? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let's explore this together. This has been Before This Life.